let's talk about a thing that I think we get a little wrong these days. And the way we talk about generative AI, to be fair, sometimes drives me crazy. But people are so easily misled in what it is, what it can do, and what it can't, that we need to talk about this thing. And to me, this is as deep as it gets. It's almost philosophical. And I want to talk about this. It's the difference between what we know and what we understand, which are completely different things. This is Connect the Dots, the AI Impact Podcast. I'm Christoph Burkhardt. Welcome to the show. All right. So when we talk about what knowledge is, right? So we have different terms that we need to clarify. One, we have data points. We have data. That's raw information. We have information that's attached to meaning, that's based in context. And then when we have a lot of information together, we draw conclusions, and usually those become systems of knowledge. And that knowledge can be codified. Now, the thing is, how humans codify knowledge. Of course, we can write things down, and this is one part of code. We can put things in numbers. That's one part of storing information, knowledge, and data. But the way we code things as humans is always fundamentally situational. Meaning, if we observe something in the world, we cannot take ourselves out of that learning process. We are the ones observing, seeing things, learning things, understanding things. And that's because the coding process of human knowledge is always based on me having my body, my brain, my ears, my eyes to use to make sense of the world. What I can't do, and this is very different from generative AI, I can't take the entire knowledge of the world and basically in a rational and unbiased manner take the entirety of that knowledge, draw conclusions, and regurgitate parts of that knowledge in new formats. That's what Gen AI does. Gen AI, to be fair, knows a lot, but it doesn't understand anything. And this is the fundamental difference. Because we codify based on our physical experience of the world, right? So when you learn something, you usually remember, at least for some things, you remember where you were when you learned that, how it felt to learn that. You remember how it felt to sit in the classroom. You know that learning there was very different than in other places. So the experience of learning is codified into every piece of information that's stored in our brains, meaning we cannot detach ourselves from the information that we use to create knowledge. Now, if we take this one step further, humans understand everything based not only on the situation we were in that created the knowledge, but also based on who we are, because we cannot ignore the physical channels that we use to create and store and retrieve information, right? So your brain is physical, right? It's a biological organ. So there are things that happen in there that are important for the knowledge to be codified and retrieved. That's a biological thing happening, meaning there's a lot happening that we don't understand yet, but it's fundamentally a physical thing. Now, that is a channel. We use a channel. We use our eyes as a channel, our ears as a channel. And the channels are never unbiased. They always come with meaning attached to the situation we're in and our identity. Who we are makes a difference for the knowledge and how you retrieve it, right? So you watch two different people watch, let's say, a presidential debate. One is a Republican, one is a Democrat. I know, a current example. And they watch the same debate. And then after that, they are asked to give you a summary of what they saw. Do you think they're going to give you the same summary? No, they won't. And this is the thing that makes us different. It's who we are that influences which kinds of information we see, which kind of information we process in a certain way, and then the situation we were in to actually make that whole knowledge come to life is also biasing what we're knowing. And that's how we understand things. And this is very different from generative AI that does not understand things. The generative AI knows a lot more than humans do. In fact, they know so much that they're very good at faking to be human because they learned how to fake to be human by listening to us, by taking the information that we gave them. But they didn't get the information by using channels that were biased. They used pure raw data and learning mechanisms to understand how humans understand and then imitate that. But it doesn't mean that a machine understands what they're saying. ChatGPT does not understand what it means to say something to you. It just knows that this is something that humans would say if they were asked the same question, or this is what humans would do if they had the information that ChatGPT has, and if they asked in a certain way. If this is the prompt I got, then humans would probably answer it this way. So I'm going to give the same answer. I'm pretending to understand. Meanwhile, I actually just know stuff. And I know humans, but I don't understand how it is to be one. And we don't want that. And we don't need generative AI to understand how it is to be human. We just need it to know enough to give us what we want in a prompt. And this is fundamentally an understanding of how we are different and why these two ways of intelligent analysis of the world and these two ways of experiencing life cannot be compared that easily, because they're fundamentally, philosophically different based on the situation we're in, based on the people we're surrounded with, based on the identity that we've grown over years. We've learned who we are and who we want to be, by the way, to very different people usually. And then it actually helps us is to go further into this world by knowing stuff. And our knowledge is pretty unique, right? So we don't share everything we know with every other human beings, just like generative AI does, right? There's not one generative AI and then it has another friend and they think completely differently, right? So their systems are made to think in one way and not in a billion different ways. Meanwhile, humans can't be compared in the way they analyze the world, because our channels, our processing powers, our experiences all come into how we see the world today. And that is grown evolutionary over years, over decades, and it cannot be easily copied and it cannot easily be understood by a machine. So understanding is what we need to foster. This is what we need to push, because our job will be to understand. The machine's jobs will be to know. If your job today is to know a lot, you will not have a job. If your job today is to understand a lot, you're safe.